I'll say go for launch.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Elon Musk!
I have heard a lot of people describe you.
Okay, good. I mean, hopefully, on balance, hopefully mostly good.
They call him the Thomas Edison of our times.
When he wants something, he really wants it, and he goes and gets it.
He's really the most driven person I think I've ever met.
The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
I'm interested in things that change the world.
Well, Elon Musk is crazy half the time. He thinks he can change the world.
When I watch you doing all these things, I'm like, how does this fucker have all this time and all this energy and all these ideas, and then people just let him do these things?
Because I'm an alien. Most people would want to be me. They may think they would want to be me, but they don't. They don't know. They don't understand. I think when I was, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something, I thought I was insane.
What was the early days of Elon Musk like?
I was, bullied quite a lot.
He hated going to school because the other kids liked to follow him home and they would throw soda cans at his head.
You know, he's a scrawny kid, socially awkward, beaten up on the playground a whole lot.
I was in some pretty severe fights as a kid, I was almost killed at one point in school in South Africa. It's a very violent place.
In 1972, white student protests over segregated education ended in serious riots in Cape Town and Johannesburg. Meanwhile, the government pressed on with developing separate homelands for blacks. This was a start of a series of violent black protests that were to sweep across South Africa in the following months.
There's been many involuntary fights. It's just the way it was.
Once where they pushed him down the concrete steps and bloodied his face so much his brother said he couldn't recognize him, and he was in the hospital for only almost a week.
I think if you have not been punched in the face with a fist, you have no idea what it's like.
But that was mild compared to the scars that were psychological from his father, because when he came home from the hospital, his father made him stand upright for a couple of hours and berated him and took the side of the boy who had beaten him up and told Elon, you'll never amount to anything, you're a loser, it's your fault.
I did not have a sort of happy childhood, to be frank. It was quite rough.
He was somebody who was socially awkward, and I mean that in the extreme. He talks about having Asperger's.
How do you think of Asperger's?
The social cues were not intuitive.
He had no friends at all. And he was very bad at emotional input-output.
I didn't sort of intuitively understand what was meant by something. I would just tend to take things very literally as just like the words as spoken.
So he sought refuge in computer games, which got him into coding.
So when I was about 10 years old, I went into a store in South Africa and saw a Commodore VIC-20. I guess maybe I was 9 years old, I don't know, somewhere at that time. And I thought this was like, the most awesome thing I'd ever seen. I taught myself how to program computers, mostly because I wanted to program games. When I was about 12, I programmed my first game. Mom, do you remember when I was 12 and I created my own video game called Blastar about a spaceship that battles aliens? So I started programming games and then selling games in order to actually buy more games and better computers and that kind of thing. Nerdmaster 3000, basically. It seemed like the vast majority of such things came from the United States.
So I understand at that time you were heavily into comics.
I read every comic in the store. And I like, obviously, the Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Iron Man, and they all seem to be set in the United States. So my goal as a kid was to try to get to America, basically. It was like, I'm strange. That was my conclusion. So when I was 17, as soon as I got my Canadian passport, 3 weeks later I was in Canada.
And off he flew, and I thought, wow, he's so independent. Of course, as soon as he lands, he calls me and he says, what do I do now?
So I bought a bus ticket from Montreal to Vancouver, and that allowed me to kind of see Canada, at least from the highway. I was in Canada for a few years at Queen's University. I rarely went to class. I'd just read the textbook and then show up for exams. The big appeal to university was being able to date girls my own age. I actually met my first wife there.
I met him when I was 18, he was 19.
When I was in college, there were 3 areas that I thought would most affect the future of humanity.
He would call me up. He always had classical music playing in the background. And he would ask me out, and I would say no.
And those were the internet.
And he would call me up again, and he would ask me out.
The transition to a sustainable energy and transportation sector.
And I would say no.
And the third was space exploration.
And it went on like this until we ended up living together.
In particular, the extension of life to multiple planets.
When you're, spending time with him, you're getting a very small part of him because 95% of his mental energy is still being consumed.
I really wanted to just kind of go where the really exciting breakthroughs were occurring. Fortunately, I got a scholarship at UPenn. Did dual undergraduate business and physics at UPenn Wharton. When I first came out to Silicon Valley, it was to do grad studies at Stanford in applied physics and material science. And then I saw, in 95, I kind of thought the internet would be something that would change the world in a major way. And I wanted to be part of it. And actually, what I first tried to do was I tried to get a job at Netscape. For whatever reason, I didn't get a reply from Netscape. And I actually tried hanging out in the lobby. It was pretty embarrassing. I was just sort of standing there trying to see if there's someone I could talk to, and then I just couldn't, I was too scared to talk to anyone, so then I left. I was just writing software that summer, and it got to the start of the quarter for Stanford, and I had to make a decision.
That was the summer of '95. I had no money whatsoever, and when it came time to decide, do I want to do graduate studies or do I want to start this company, and I decided to start the company.
I talked to the chairman of the department, and he let me go on deferment, and I said I'd probably be back in 6 months, and he said he's probably never going to hear from me again, and he was correct. I've never spoken to him since.
And how old were you when you started this company, or what became this company?
23. There were myself, my brother, who I convinced to come down from Canada, and a friend of my mom's. And the 3 of us created Zip2.
In starting the company, I had nothing. I had no income source. So we found that an office, it was just the nastiest place you can imagine. I just sort of slept on the futon and showered at the YMCA on Page Mill and El Camino. I think the internet is the superset of all media. It is the be-all and end-all of media.
Back in '95, there weren't very many people on the internet. The initial idea was to create software that could help bring the media companies online.
I think it's going to revolutionize all traditional media.
A year ago, Musk sold his software company, Zip2, which enabled newspapers to publish online for $400 million cash.
Receiving cash is cash. I mean, those are just a large number of Ben Franklins. So I certainly had the choice at that point of retiring and buying an island somewhere and sipping Mai Tais, but that was not of interest to me at all.
There really wasn't a choice of we weren't going to do anything. It was just really what we were going to do next. In Elon's case in particular, it was really just a stepping stone.
So this is an ATM. What we're going to do is transform the traditional banking industry.
I do not fit the picture of a banker.
X.com, this is Julie.
I've sunk the great majority of my net worth into X.com, which is the new banking and mutual funds company on the internet that I've started.
I think X.com could absolutely be a multi-billion-dollar bonanza. Because if you look at the industry that X is pursuing, it's the biggest sector of the world economy. I would say it's been fairly successful, given that X.com, now called PayPal, is the #1 financial site in the world.
My fear is that we become spoiled brats, that we lose a sense of appreciation and perspective.
Sure is
Let's
fun.
be honest.
Sure is
You'll
fun.
take the car. It's been a roller coaster ride in terms of watching Elon go through the trials and tribulations of working and the toll that's, it takes on a relationship.
I think It's not a good idea to leave the office when there are like a lot of major things underway which are causing people a great deal of stress.
For better or worse, I would say for worse, he likes drama and fighting and intensity in his relationships.
When you date or marry Elon, you don't see him much. So it is hard to have a relationship in his case.
I've gotten married earlier that year and not had any vacation or honeymoon or anything, so it was kind of a combined financing trip / honeymoon.
Yeah.
Away for 2 weeks, and there was just so much, there was just a lot of worry, and that caused the management team to decide that I wasn't the right guy to run the company.
It got to the point where I didn't really want to be, I was neither well-suited to run a company of that size, nor was I particularly interested in running a 600-plus person company. So I decided to remain as a director of the company, but look for something else to do.
Now, in retrospect, I think that wasn't the best thing, because the person that was hired, in my opinion, was actually not that great. Yeah, I mean, I think quite frankly, the company succeeded in spite of that person, not because of him.
On a personal level, at this point, I would say I'm a little tired of the internet.
So it's a really funny Simpsons episode. Elon has this meaningful relationship with Homer. It's very romantic. And at one point, the Smithers character says,
I don't trust Musk. Anyone with that much money has a darkness in his soul.
Apollo 11, landing on the moon, was probably the most inspiring thing in history. I'm not sure SpaceX would exist if not for Apollo 11.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I think most people would agree that a future where we're a spacefaring civilization is inspiring and exciting compared with one where we are forever confined to Earth until some eventual extinction event. You know, that's really why I started SpaceX. The thing to do is to establish a base on Mars and try to make that a self-sustaining base as soon as possible. I mean, I don't expect that SpaceX is going to do that sort of single-handedly, but I think we're going to try to advance the technology of space travel to the point where we can at least send some number of people to Mars, which is not currently possible. So I actually went to Russia 3 times to look at buying a refurbished ICBM. One good friend of mine collected a whole series of videos of rockets blowing up and made me watch those. He just didn't want me to lose all my money. And I can tell you it was very weird going there in 2000, late 2001, 2002, going to the Russian rocket forces and saying, I'd like to buy 2 of your biggest rockets, but you can keep the nuke.
So Elon starts to tell the chief designer, you know, all about his idea of multiplanetary species. And here's Elon in his late 20s, and you know, they don't know him. He looks like he just walked in off the street, and they took that as a sign of disrespect. The chief designer was very angry. He chopped Elon off mid-sentence, started staccato Russian. This is a machine of war. This is not a toy for some young kid from Silicon Valley, and you know, this is not internet bullshit here. We're talking life and death. Then he spit on Elon's shoes, and he spit on my shoes. Elon turned to me and he said, I think he spit on her shoes.
One of the great things I admire about Elon is when he wants something, he really wants it, and he goes and gets it. And it's amazing to watch him do that as his brother, and he's done it throughout his life.
What we're hoping to do with SpaceX is to push the envelope and provide a reason for people to be excited and inspired to be human.
And I said, oh, you look tired. He says, well, I didn't sleep last night. I said, oh, what were you doing? And he says, I designed a rocket.
I mean, I was, I think, the second person Elon pitched SpaceX to, and I was like, oh, you're going to be doing this thing that comes off, you know, national government subsidies and so forth. Oh, this is a disaster. And he was right. I was wrong.
The reason we started with a small launch vehicle is to be able to survive a problem on launch. You know, I want to be able to make sure we have enough capital to survive at least 3 consecutive failures.
I was one of the early investors in SpaceX, and I said, you know what? If all I get to do is to see these rockets explode. Well worth every dime I put into this company. But it's
Thank you, Elon. You're welcome. Well, let me tell you what makes a rocket hard.
We have liftoff.
The energy and the velocity required to get into orbit is so substantial that...
Last year we got to orbit for the first time with our rocket, that was certainly a huge relief and a milestone.
If that fourth launch hadn't worked, that would have been it. We would have not had the resources to mount a fifth.
Stage separation confirmed.
32 seconds and counting.
You know, there are American heroes who don't like this idea. Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight in the way that you're developing it, and I wonder what you think of that.
You know, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
Did you expect them to cheer you on?
Certainly hoping they would.
Tesla's kind of like Plan A, save this planet.
I mean, this is really important for the future of the world.
And SpaceX is kind of Plan B.
Although I'm quite optimistic about life on Earth, I should point out. I think that the probable outcome for civilization on Earth is quite good.
This afternoon, SpaceX launched the world's most powerful rocket, and it's a major milestone for the company. And this is a live look at what's happening right now in space. That's Elon Musk's own Tesla convertible in orbit. The driver is a mannequin he's calling Starman.
We have record high CO2 levels. It's really important. It makes a difference if we accelerate the transition to sustainable transport. We created Tesla to make a difference in the world. The world desperately needs sustainable transport. People are like, well, why would I want an electric car? My gasoline car works fine. If we don't solve this problem this century, we are fracked.
I am not one of the doomsday people, which may surprise. I actually think we're on a good path.
People have called you the real Tony Stark.
Elon Musk is about as close as you're going to get in real life to Tony Stark.
You were the inspiration for the Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark character.
Is this us?
Absolutely. It can be.
Great. Make it us.
Okay.
Mr. Musk, how are you?
Congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those Merlin engines are fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good idea for an electric jet.
You do?
Yeah.
Then we'll make it work.
Did you work with him on that in Iron Man?
I guess I met with Robert Downey Jr. Just before they were filming Iron Man 1. Gave him a tour of the rocket factory, showed him the electric car and everything. And I guess we talked about some of the possible scientific explanations for the powers that Iron Man has in his suit.
But at the age of 37, he hit rock bottom. In 2008, the rocket company is not going well. You've had 3 failures.
Great.
We are hearing from the Launch Control Center that there has been an anomaly on the vehicle. We don't have any information about what that anomaly is at this time.
The car company is hemorrhaging money.
Yeah. When we'd call people and say, hey, would you like to invest? They'd be angry that we just called. We have like an army of cars here. Like, Jesus.
I'm looking like we're going to be able to deliver 4 cars to the sales team.
This is frightening. It's really pedal to the metal here. Like, I mean, you know, each month that passes is literally costs us tens of millions of dollars.
And the American economy has tanked in the worst recession since the Great Depression.
Right.
CBS News special report.
We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis.
The signs were everywhere, but now it's official, we are in a recession.
Downside.
The latest slide, nearly 700 points, came as reports showed manufacturing activity hitting a 26-year low last month.
What was that year like for you?
I remember waking up the Sunday before Christmas in 2008 and thinking to myself, man, I never thought I was someone who could ever be capable of a nervous breakdown. But I felt this was the closest I've ever come, because it seemed pretty dark.
We were seeing a marital therapist, and I think he just got tired of the stress and the uncertainty of it. And the next day, I went into my therapist's office, and he had left a message for her to tell me that he was filing for divorce.
And I'm getting divorced, by the way, to add to that. That was definitely the worst year of my life.
If there's one thing I could go back in time and say, I wish I had never met Martin Eberhard.
As an electrical engineer, I know that you can make an electric car that rocks if you want to. Since it didn't exist, I said, can I start that company?
Someone who claims credit for things he didn't do and is obnoxious about it.
This is one of the things that I found kind of fascinating about him, is that he's actually accomplished some amazing things in his own right.
He's totally amazing.
Yeah, SpaceX is amazing, and he's done some interesting things with Tesla for sure. I'm not sure why he has to also say that he was a founder when he wasn't. I don't understand that.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Elon didn't found Tesla. He used the money he got from co-founding PayPal to buy a stake in Tesla. Then he kicked out the original co-founder, Martin Eberhard.
I was voted off the island, and in a rather rude way, it wound up with some lawsuits and some settlements. Yeah, so I can't say a lot about it.
And stole Martin's title, not to mention his car.
Yeah, I started off being the CEO, so I was CEO for probably the first year, and then. But after we got VC funding, the venture capitalists wanted to hire a professional CEO.
Help us understand who came up with the name Tesla. The trademark was actually held by a guy, I think, who lived around Sacramento or something. Like I said, owned by someone not us.
In 2003, we actually incorporated the company. I had come up with the idea for the name of the company, and he immediately liked it, even before he really agreed that we would do cars.
Yeah. We incorporated on July 1st.
Yes.
2003. We were working with a lawyer, and we went, and it was like, the 4th of July holiday is coming up. Can we just get this done before the 4th of July? We then discovered that Tesla's birthday is, I think, July 12th. 10th. And if we had just waited, we would have, if we thought about it, but it never occurred to me to check the birthday.
Steve Selleck, who came up with the Tesla Motors, the guy that we bought the trademark from, that guy. So then finally I sent Mark Topping, who is, although he's Martin's best friend, is still a super nice guy.
Elon was, investor in Series A. He was very supportive always, financially and on the board. He was always supportive, from the beginning, but he wasn't the founder in the sense of he wasn't, we started it. It wasn't as though in creating these companies that we thought that we would be successful. I thought that the most likely outcome was failure. But it was still worth doing, even though the odds of success were low.
By the time we divorced, we were living in a house in Bel Air.
He had left a message for her to tell me that he was filing for divorce.
At 38, Elon's running SpaceX and Tesla. He's got 5 boys, he's going through a very public divorce, and he's got a new fiancée.
I don't know how he handles the stress. I mean, if I was him, I'd have died of a heart attack. You would not wish that kind of pain on your worst enemy. I thought he was some sort of hapless engineer that had wandered into a London club, and he just looked so forlorn. He was sort of just sat in a corner on his BlackBerry, and he just looked really out of place and sad. I was, trying to be very sweet to him and sort of humouring him, going, oh yes, when he was going, this is my rocket, and he was very charming and definitely the most interesting and eccentric person I have ever met. Elon proposed really quickly. The idea of being swept off your feet is appealing, and I'd probably have said yes to anyone that seemed half sensible if they proposed after 10 days, just because it's kind of an interesting thing to do.
A quote you cited about Elon really stood out to me. I forget who it's from, but inside the man, he's still there as a child, the child standing in front of his dad.
That was Tallulah, his second wife. She's an English actress.
Welcome to Westworld.
She's great and loving and calm, and was a calming influence, and was the best thing to happen to him, in my opinion, when it came to romance.
There was something called the Tesla Death Watch at the time, which was an internet site kind of counting down the days till when Tesla was going to disappear. He'd have night terrors in the middle of the night. I'd be fast asleep, and then suddenly he would be screaming in his sleep and sort of trying to climb up, like in his sleep, trying to escape something.
Well, I mean, Tesla really faced a severe threat of death due to the Model 3 production ramp. Essentially, the company was bleeding money like crazy, and just if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. People should not work this hard. They should not do this. It's very painful.
He has a kind of innocence to him. What I mean by that is that he feels with incredible purity the emotion that he is feeling at the time, whatever that emotion is. He feels things very, very deeply. So, I've heard it said that he's cold and emotionless, and that could not be further from the truth. He is the most emotional person I know.
2008 and 2009 came along, and it was a choice of either invest everything or the companies would definitely die. So it's like, if I invest everything, then they might live. And if I don't invest everything, then they're definitely going to die. So I ended up investing everything, and it was real tight, actually.
He saved the company in its darkest hour with an act of heroism that is hard to describe. There's nothing quite like spending your last remaining dollar on a project you believe in.
It was thankfully a good week, but definitely took its toll from a mental strain standpoint. I think I mentally just burned out a few circuits.
You'll hear him talking about his psychological struggles. You hear him talking about his depression. Yeah, he says, I've never been diagnosed as bipolar, but that might be the case. As with Asperger's, there's so many different forms of autism spectrum disorder.
You're an intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way.
He's somebody who not only is not usually happy, but he doesn't value happiness. If you said, what are the top 10 things you want in life? I don't think happiness, pleasure, calmness, sweetness, going to the beach, none of those would be in the top 10. Tallulah Riley, she said, he's not the type who can stop and savor or smell the flowers. He doesn't want to sit back and be content and be happy.
You have once said, if I'm not in love, I cannot be happy. Are you happy at the moment?
I think there's degrees of love. But certainly for one to be fully happy, I think you have to be happy in work and happy in love. I suppose I'm medium happy. There are degrees of happiness.
Can love for projects, for work, compensate love among people?
I think love of work, in my experience, can at best make one halfway happy.
Perhaps that's your biggest hope, to be really in love.
I have been in the past.
It was one of the bad Christmases. He'd forgotten to get me a Christmas present. We were in Boulder, Colorado, so there's loads and loads of snow. And we were in bed. And he said, I do, he's not that I don't love you. I do really, really love you. It's like, my brain is exploding. And I was like, no, I know, it's fine. And he sort of got up in the middle of the night and disappeared. I was like, where has he gone? And he came back 2 hours later, and he'd gone outside in his t-shirt and shorts, barefoot, and he'd gone and dug through the snow and picked flowers from, he'd walked all over Boulder and came back with a little bouquet of picked flowers. And he was like, I just wanted to show you how much I loved you.
I try to be as literal as possible. I would be happy if humanity has a self-sustaining city on Mars, because then the probable lifespan of humanity is much greater. I think we really just got this, consciousness, this little candle of consciousness, like a small light in the void. And we don't want that
small candle in a vast darkness to be put out.
He always valued the intensity, and she knew herself and said, this is amazing. I really love everything happening, but this is not who I am. I'm going to be back in a more calm environment. And eventually she leaves and comes back to England.
Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk is getting divorced from a woman he married twice. Musk and actress Tallulah Riley says it's an amicable split, and he has agreed to give her $16 million in cash and other assets. The PayPal co-founder and Tesla Motors CEO split with Riley 3 years ago, then tied the knot again in July of 2013.
What was that like working for Elon?
There's definitely 2 a.m. texts and 6 a.m. conference calls.
I had no work-life balance.
I lost those prime years with my daughter.
Try is not good enough. You need to do.
I didn't have as much contact with my family as I otherwise would have.
You really need to be more dedicated to the mission than you are to your own personal growth.
I mean, even in meetings, he was...
He is arguably the best leader on the face of the planet.
On a late Friday night, he's down in the southern tip of Texas where they have the launch pad for Starbase. And it's a Friday night after 10 p.m., and everything's going smoothly. There's no launches being scheduled. And he looks at the launch pad area and says, why are there only 3 or 4 people working? And this poor guy, Andy Krabs, nice, tall, southern young engineer, says, well, it's a Friday night, and we don't have any launches scheduled. And Musk goes dark on him and says, I want tomorrow 100 people from Florida, California, so they can all work for 24 hours a day, and we're going to stack this rocket, even though we're not planning to launch anytime soon. And they fly people in. People are sleeping on the ground, on the floors, and Andy Krabs survives it.
He measures pretty much every major decision by whether or not it brings the day when we have a self-sustainable colony on Mars sooner or later. That's the prism by which he makes every single decision he makes it through that prism.
For sure, he's a bit temperamental and irascible, but he pushes people to be their best.
He pushes so hard, and I don't mean like every day he's pushing hard. It's just the things that he wants to do and the way he wants to drive the company.
He's got an idea, and he'll keep pushing, and he gives us aggressive timelines that we have to work to, and we work really hard to try to meet him.
One of the ways that we explained what the SpaceX culture was, and this was in order to be really honest with people. SpaceX is Special Forces.
He often asked us to take Special Forces methods to get our jobs accomplished.
This will be the hardest thing you will ever do in your life.
You want to keep up, and you don't want to fall behind, and so you do great work. You are self-motivated to try to achieve the goals that he sets forth.
It will be bruising and punishing and uncomfortable every day.
I remember him yelling at some of his finance people who were friendly with some of the engineers and said, no, collegiality is your enemy. You do not want them to like you. You're there to challenge them. If they like you too much, you're not doing your job.
To work for Elon is to be comfortable in a constant state of discomfort.
A lot of people will say he was also exhausting and mercurial, and after a while they just couldn't keep up with him.
Andy Krabs survives it and does pretty well, but eventually he quits. He says, man, I have a kid. I just can't keep going through these things with Elon.
I don't know how he does it. He just keeps going and going and going. He's amazing. The amount of energy that man has, he can just take the pain of dealing with it constantly, and most of us can't.
He's not afraid of burning people out and having them leave.
I remember sitting in a room with him and telling him that my 3-year-old son was calling me dad, and that I needed to take a break.
About 3 weeks ago, I was in Los Angeles, and I see this tall guy I recognize coming up after the speech. It's Andy Krabs. I said, what's happened? He said, well, as you know, I quit, and I came back to Los Angeles, and I got a much easier job. But I decided I'd rather be burned out than bored. And I've asked Elon if I could come back because I don't want to miss working for SpaceX.
We take on the missions that others deem impossible.
He asked us to do the impossible, but he modeled that himself. So
You know, how are you going to tell the hardest working man in the world that, like, no, I can't get that done?
His approach is to do anything required to keep his businesses competitive. And he lived that every single day when I worked for him.
Sleep on the couch over there.
So you're just laying here on the couch?
Yeah. Last time I was here, I actually slept literally on the floor because the couch was too narrow.
If Elon Musk can take the time to sleep there and be there 24 hours a day, everyone else should make the time.
Well, there's certainly multiple Elon Musk, multiple personalities, whether it's the hardcore engineering mode that you know so well, but also there's almost a demon mode of Elon Musk where he turns really dark.
There were moments when he would definitely get upset, and you've, heard of him firing people on the spot. Yes, all of that happened.
He kind of assesses people, and I've noticed he tends to stare at them, and it can be very intimidating.
Standard parts on those cars.
I want names named. If someone's always on the hot seat and is always the root cause for problems, they will not be part of this organization long term.
Demon mode is something that happened to his father as well. It's almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where a cloud comes over and he gets into a trance and he can just be tough. In a cold way. He never gets really angry, never gets that physical, but coldly brutal to people.
When Elon was behaving badly, I would kind of liken it to a toddler.
And one time it was about 9 o'clock at night. Elon was going around the office looking to see who was sitting in their cubes. And there weren't many people sitting in their cubes. It was 9 p.m. and his face turned red. And he was just really angry that, the entire company wasn't there in the office at 9 o'clock at night.
I've seen Elon fire dozens and dozens and dozens of people.
If Elon's micromanaging you, you're probably on your way out.
And one thing I noticed, if people were negative, they were not in the next meeting.
It's not okay to be unhappy and part of this company.
It's almost you see a storm cloud coming in, and he's in a trance.
He said, a company is a bunch of vectors. Each person is a vector, and they need to point in the direction that you want to go. He was always about making all the vectors, which all the employees, pointing in the right direction forward, moving forward.
I think back to the 1976 Winter Olympics and watching Franz Klammer run the downhill, where he was on the edge of sheer collapse and destruction at every gate. Elon runs his life a lot like that, but he also had a tremendous experience and ended up on the podium with a gold medal.
But demon mode is what gets shit done.
What really strikes me about your staff is everyone is almost messianic with their vision. They're true believers in Elon Musk's vision of the world.
If he asks me to jump, I'm going to ask him how high.
Elon's employees generally will walk through a wall for him.
I mean, we're all working 80, 100 hours a week. We kind of lost track of our families, our passions, our hobbies, and all that stuff.
He has 10,000 times more what the average person has streaming through their brain at any given time. Our ability to think about and analyze a problem is nothing compared to how his brain works.
He's rarely wrong. If it doesn't sound like what you think we should be doing, I always stop and think, okay, we've been through this before. Think hard about what he's saying, what he's trying to achieve, and figure out how to make it work.
I would take the bad with the good, because if you mess with the recipe, you might mess with the magic.
What was that like working for Elon?
It was fun.
I use my tweets to express myself. Some people use their hair. I use Twitter to try to tweet out things that are interesting or funny. Tweeting more or less stream of consciousness, on the toilet or something. I'm like, oh, this is funny, and then tweet that out. Twitter is a war zone. If somebody's gonna jump in the war zone, okay, you're in the arena. Let's go.
So I use it to post trivia, sometimes things that are of great importance.
So you do a lot of it at night, late at night?
We'll get into a dark mood late at night and do tweets that are conspiratorial and dark and self-destructive.
There are times when I have, I don't know, like a negative chemical state in my brain. Like depression that's not linked to any negative news. It's just chemical tides in your brain once in a while. It's like a brain storm.
It's almost you see a storm cloud coming in.
I'm just so curious what happened in your brain when you see all this happening. Are you sitting there going, oh my God, I stepped in it. I wish I didn't do that? Are you saying, screw them, I hate these people, why are they after me?
But all of that.
He was with his brother and some other relatives, and they all sit around talking. And they ask, what do you regret most this year? And he says, I regret the fact that every now and then I start shooting myself in the foot or stabbing myself in the thigh.
I've made many mistakes over the years. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and fix them, but I don't have a time machine.
Here are some of the words written about you. Erratic, unstable, reckless, operatic.
Operatic? It's not bad, actually. I kind of like that one. I'm just being me.
I think he's a pretty smart guy, and I don't think that he would continue to cause himself pain if it really was not in his best interest.
Well, that escalated quickly. Tesla CEO Elon Musk is facing a heap of legal issues this hour. The funding secured portion left investor heads spinning, wondering if that's really true.
Elon Musk is stepping down as chairman of Tesla as part of a settlement with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It was announced today. The SEC sued Musk on Thursday.
He's acting responsibly. If your peer group is Britney Spears, that's just fine. Oops, I did it again. And that's what he's doing.
There are people who say that the company cannot survive without you.
I don't think that's true. Yeah.
There are people who say the company cannot survive with you.
Regulators say Musk had not secured that funding.
Funding was indeed secured. I was told by the banks that if I did not agree to settle with the SEC, that the banks would cease providing working capital and Tesla would go bankrupt immediately. So that's like having a gun to your child's head. So I was forced to concede to the SEC unlawfully, those bastards. I was forced to admit that I lied to save Tesla's life, and that's the only reason. The SEC civil case lost unanimous jury verdict in San Francisco. They picked San Francisco because they thought it was the place I was most likely to lose.
The judge, after this hearing, said, look, you've got 2 weeks for the two sides to spend at least an hour together. See if you can come up with some way to work out the communication rules in terms of what Elon Musk is allowed to communicate, whether it's via Twitter.
Tesla says it will comply with the settlement, but that only gives the company 3 weeks, 21 days, to get the policy in place to pre-approve relevant Musk tweets.
Have you had any of your tweets censored since the settlement?
No.
It's really hard for a board to pull Elon Musk back. He is the visionary for the company.
Does someone have to read them before they go out?
No, but not once did the SEC go after any of the hedge funds. They would lie flat. The hedge funds would lie flat out on TV for their own gain. Not once did the SEC pursue them.
They know if it's going to move the market if they're not reading all of them.
So I guess we might make some mistakes. Who knows?
Are you serious?
Nobody's perfect.
Look at you.
No, I want to be clear. I do not respect the SEC.
And in the end, I think it comes down to whether or not you believe that a line's being crossed, but he probably doesn't.
Is there a scenario in which Elon Musk stops tweeting along the way?
That's hilarious.
Anyway, Elon on Donald Trump.
I mean, I don't really have strong feelings, except that hopefully Trump doesn't get the nomination of, the Republican Party. That's because I think that's, that wouldn't be good.
I feel a bit stronger that probably he's not the right guy. It doesn't seem to have the sort of character that reflects well in the United States. It's just, I don't know, just no.
Musk will join Trump's Strategic and Policy Forum, according to USA Today. Since Musk was clearly not a Trump fan during the campaign, the news that Musk has the president-elect's ear is an odd surprise, but not a total shock.
Many think his vision to make the world more sustainable will greatly influence Trump's presidency.
No immediate reaction here from the White House to these tweets that we're seeing from Elon Musk, and he's upset about the apparent decision of the White House to possibly remove the United States from the Paris Accords. That I don't know which way Paris will go, but I've done all I can to advise directly to POTUS. We'll have no choice but to depart counsels in that case.
Definitely, yeah, like I at least think of myself as a moderate, so, I mean, at least I've spent a massive amount of my life energy building sustainable energy, electric vehicles and batteries and solar and stuff to help save the environment. I would say that I'd be probably left of center on social issues, probably a little bit right of center on economic issues.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to hear Elon Musk come out so early already and say that he supports Andrew Yang. So he certainly has a base of people, which now includes Elon Musk, who really support some of his more progressive ideas and his willingness to kind of change his mind and find solutions to problems.
I had a son who died at 10 weeks. Nevada Alexander Musk. It was called a SIDS-related incident.
He had 5 older children, teenagers, surviving. One died in infancy. And the oldest of them was named Xavier, after his favorite character in the X-Men comics. And Xavier transitions and sends a note about 3 years ago saying, "I'm transitioning, my name is now Jenna, and don't tell my father."
I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys, Xavier.
Now, he gets his head around the fact that she transitioned, and he loves her, but she becomes very anti-capitalist, very woke, hates all billionaires, thinks capitalism is theft, and rejects him and changes her last name.
Elon Musk attributes his daughter, Vivian Jenna Wilson's distancing from him to her school's influence, stating she went beyond socialism to being a full-on communist and thinking that anyone rich is evil. He discloses the rift is deeply painful, comparing it to the loss of his first child.
And this causes him an enormous amount of pain, and he partly blames it on Los Angeles, where you live sometimes. There's this very progressive school she went to, called Crossroads.
This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on, and we had COVID going on, and so there was a lot of confusion.
He will say, nothing has caused me more pain, he says this outright, than his daughter rejecting him. Not transitioning, but just totally rejecting him. You know, you talk to his sister, you talk to his brother or his brother's wife. They say that's the thing that's caused him enormous personal pain, and he says so.
Xavier was born gay and slightly autistic, 2 attributes that contribute to gender dysphoria. I knew that from when he was about 4 years old, and he would pick out clothes for me to wear like a jacket and tell me it was fabulous, as well of his love of musicals and theater. But he was not a girl. And of course, he's dead naming his daughter.
The reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus.
Hey, it is Vivian Jenna Wilson. I'm just going to come on here and say that I'm doing well. I'm doing fine, actually. I'm formulating a response and whatnot. It's being worked on. It's being worked on.
There's a lot of stuff I need to debunk, which I will get to, don't worry. But I want to start with what I find the funniest, which is the notorious slightly autistic tweet. This is entirely fake. Like, literally none of this ever happened. Ever. I don't even know where he got this from.
He loves his family. He's a good dad.
I did not have a love of musicals and theater when I was 4 because, I was fucking 4. I never picked out jackets for him to wear, and I was most certainly not calling them fabulous because literally what the fuck.
But if you look at him based on his kids, the guy loves his kid.
This entire thing is completely made up, and there's a reason for this. He doesn't know what I was like as a child because he quite simply wasn't there. And in the little time that he was, I was relentlessly harassed for my femininity and queerness.
So he always likes having some of his children around him.
I'm legally recognized as a woman in the state of California, and I don't concern myself with the opinions of those who are below me. I just started to find it funny at this point. Calling me dead on a podcast with Jordan Peterson of all people, while basically admitting you have zero reading comprehension.
I admire the guy for the way he took care of his kids. It was, that's the side of Elon and not everyone gets to see.
He has only one home now because when his daughter transitioned and became very anti-capitalist, he thought that if selling all 5 of his pretty nice homes, he would just live very frugally, and that would please her, which didn't work.
So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus. I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that.
For the greatest capitalist in the history of the United States of America, Elon Musk.
He's edged from being what I would call a center-left, somebody who donated to Obama and voted for Biden, to somebody who has become worked up about what he calls the woke mind virus.
Do you know what the term woke actually means?
When you stop caring about people's skills and their integrity, and you start focusing instead on gender and race and other things that are different from that. I think the woke blind virus is fundamentally racist, fundamentally sexist, and fundamentally evil. The woke blind virus is communism rebranded. And I agree with you that the people that have been promoting this should go to prison.
It's a death cult. No, that is exactly right. It's essentially the extinctionists that they're propagating the extinction of humanity and civilization.
We should view civilization as tenuous, as fragile. So we should do everything we possibly can to preserve and extend civilization as we know it.
Like there was a guy on the front page of the New York Times who literally has the thing called the extinctionist movement. And he was quoted on the front page of the New York Times as saying, there are 8 billion people in the world, but it would be better if there were none. So I'm like, I'm not in favor of human extinction. You can go to hell.
I think we need to be very cautious about anything that is anti-meritocratic and anything that is that results in the suppression of free speech. So, those are two of the aspects of the woke blind virus that I think are very dangerous. Is that it's often anti-meritocratic. You can't question things.
Well, in order for the virus to propagate, it must suppress opposing woke viewpoints. So,
Because it doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
Correct.
So I'm sitting, you just opened Giga Texas, which is the largest factory manufacturing things. It's a Tesla factory in Austin, Texas. On the mezzanine, the factory's not even open yet. I guess this is April 2022. And he tells me that he still needs more drama in his life. He says, okay, I'm buying Twitter.
Elon Musk took the Twitterverse by storm today with an unsolicited bid to buy the social media platform and says he now wants to turn Twitter into the world's, quote, platform for free speech.
Musk signaled his intentions Wednesday, renaming his Twitter account title as Chief Twit.
If in this case you are not successful in, the board does not accept your offer, you've said you won't go higher, is there a plan B?
There is.
I think we would like to hear a little bit about plan B.
Twitter now says it's going to force Elon Musk to buy them for $44 billion. Musk has threatened to walk away after accusing Twitter of withholding info about fake users.
Twitter reportedly planning to sue Musk to make sure the deal goes through. The billionaire responding with some meme warfare, tweeting, quote, "They said I couldn't buy Twitter. Then they wouldn't disclose bot info. Now they want to force me to buy Twitter in court. Now they have to disclose bot info in court."
You kind of said, I actually don't want to buy Twitter anymore. Then you changed your mind again and decided to buy it. Did you do that? Did you do that?
I kind of had to.
Right. Did you do that because you thought that a court would make you do that?
Yes.
Right.
People thought when you bought Twitter that this is kind of an outlier. Like, what doesn't fit with these other things you're doing? I never thought that. Because I think you're dealing with big civilizational issues and problems.
I mean, this is going to sound somewhat melodramatic, but I was worried about that it was having a corrosive effect on civilization.
The old school Twitter suspended and suppressed accounts that you'd call on the right 10 times more than they did accounts on the left.
If he gets control of this thing and fixes it and allows it to be a true narrative where every voice is heard, then it's a world platform. Then it's maybe worth it.
We do have what we would call like the kind of United Nations exclusion rule, which is that you can have, say, the Ayatollah who would prefer that Israel didn't exist, for example. But he's allowed to go to the UN building in New York. In fact, generally officials from Iran do in fact go to the UN building in New York, even though they're a heavily sanctioned country.
But he had the 100 million plus followers, whether he owned the asset or not.
But he doesn't control the narrative there. He doesn't control the platform.
You said, it would be great to have Maddow, Don Lemon, others on the left put on this platform. You'll receive full support. The digital town square is for all. What do you mean by that?
We obviously have, for example, Tucker Carlson, who most people will view as being on the right. We want to have prominent names to the left as well to provide different points of view, as well as centrists. Just basically a wide range of viewpoints on the platform so users can hear different opinions They can hear, what's your point of view, what's Tucker's point of view, and and people can make their own decision about what they believe.
As he talks about free street speech, and he says he hopes even his worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means.
That is actually that's the right spirit, right? He wants even his fiercest critics to be in the debate and to be on Twitter and to be heard.
Elon Musk posted a video of himself in San Francisco Wednesday with a line, "Entering Twitter headquarters. Let that sink in." And there he was, literally carrying a sink.
The day before he took over, he marches in. They're showing him how we have quiet spaces for people who need, to get their mental energy restored.
He posted another tweet at 2:39 p.m., meeting a lot of cool people at Twitter today. And tweets from Twitter employees popped up through the day, showing Musk at the office.
And they said, we value psychological safety. And Musk looked at me and kind of did his raspy laugh. Says, psychological safety, blank, screw that. An urgent intensity is our operating principle. Psychological safety is our enemy.
A new chapter has begun at Twitter, and for half the people who work there, they will not be part of it. They were let go today, finding out by email that they no longer have a job.
Employees have until 5 p.m. today to commit to extremely hardcore work or leave the company.
We're all about to get fired from Twitter. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Pretty much everyone said is that it felt quite haphazard.
It was.
And it felt a little bit uncaring.
I wouldn't say uncaring.
Elon Musk has defended his decision to sack thousands of staff at Twitter without warning.
The issue is the company's either going to go bankrupt, or if we do not cut costs immediately. This is not a uncaring situation. It's like if the whole ship sinks, then nobody's got a job.
Mr. Musk also attempted to allay concerns about the spread of hate speech, saying Twitter's commitment to content moderation remained unchanged. Many big firms have paused their advertising on Twitter, while uncertainty about its content controls remain.
I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment. And I'm going to stick to that. And if that means making less money, so be it. I'm saying what I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. If they're going to force censorship on the company before advertising, then obviously I find that unacceptable.
Why is that not a form of free speech? They are free to advertise where they want. They're not beholden to, they're not obligated to advertise.
They're not obligated.
On X.com.
Right.
The aspiration for X is to be the global town square. Now, if you were to walk down to, let's say, Times Square, right? Do you occasionally hear people saying crazy things?
Okay. So, but you don't think it's okay for them not to have their content or their advertisement next to something that is anti-Semitic or...
That is a different question. You can choose where you want your advertising, what you want your advertising to appear next to, but you can't insist on censorship of the entire platform. And if you insist on censorship of the entire platform, even where your advertising doesn't appear, then don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself. But go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
What do you do?
Why?
What the hell happened to Elon Musk, who seems to have launched himself completely into MAGA world, fighting what he has described as the woke mind virus?
Seems like an endorsement of President Trump.
People tend to take, say, an endorsement as, I agree with everything that person's ever done their entire life, 100% wholeheartedly. And that's not going to be true of anyone. Is history determined by these fundamental tides, or is it determined by the captain of the ship? In stormy times, you want the best possible captain of the ship.
Has he always been a conservative? I mean, obviously, we see in recent years
the affinity now for Donald Trump.
Well, we were all Democrats, registered Democrats, and we've all changed. We've just had our minds blown and we realized that the only way to save America is to vote Republican.
I just want to know if you are considering running in 2028.
Well, there'd have to be a constitutional amendment for that. I was born, oddly enough, in Africa, which is a strange spawn point, but it's like, so I cannot be president.
I know that it's probably something that the government's supposed to handle, but it seems like I don't want the government to handle this.
Who do you want to handle
I want
it?
you to handle this.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I feel like you're the one who could ring the bell better.
He's got zero tolerance for any hint of bureaucracy.
Elon Musk announced as leaders of a new Department of Government Efficiency. Trump said in a statement, Musk will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy.
My heart goes out to you.
Your detractors, Mr. Musk.
I have to what?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. To be clear, I want to build rockets and cars. And in fact, you can look at talks that I gave like 20 years ago, and I say the same thing. So you just like, it's not like I'm just, I believe we want to be a space-faring civilization and out there among the stars. And I just love creating technologies that people find useful. I'll work hard on the Department of Government Efficiency. After that, I hope I can not be in politics. That would be my hope. Like I said, I'm doing this because I think it's critical to the future of the country. And it's
been building up for his entire life since he was a lonely kid in the corner of the bookstore reading those X-Men comics and then sort of having these visions of saving humanity.
If I died knowing that I did what was right or did my best to do what was right, and even if in the history books they said I did wrong, I would still feel okay about that. I care about the reality of goodness, not the perception of it.